What's up, everyone, and welcome to Metalcore Nerds. I am Sean Mott, your host, and joining me for this nice 6-week journey of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, my co-host for the show, Billy Sweet. What is up, my man?
Hi, Sean. just kicking it, bro. Just kicking it.
Hell yeah, man. So if you guys are new to Metalcore Nerds, it is Billy and I were talking about this a little before the show about how he hasn't really found it. He found the Facebook group through one of his friends, and he didn't really know a group where the heavy music scene and nerd culture kind of got together. But here we are. That was my idea for this, and I'm glad it's became like a nice little community together. So if you're new to this, cool, awesome. If you're coming back, a recurring listener, that's awesome too. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Hit a little like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the Falcon Winter Soldier. And if you're listening to us in audio form, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. And if you listen to it on Spotify, follow on Spotify. That's about it. Nice little thing about that. So before we dive deep into this first episode of the Falcon Winter Soldier, we can just go over our little non-spoiler thoughts of the episode. So What did you think?
I thought for the premiere, I thought it was a great introduction. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think probably if I don't talk about anything in specific, but I thought for the premiere, I thought it was the best. It's probably kind of like exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was just a perfect setup. You got to see everybody you wanted to see, and then just doing their thing, and it was fucking awesome. I loved it so fucking much, man. It was great.
Oh yeah. Same here. The thing that surprised me a little bit, and it was a good surprise, is that obviously it kind of starts off very action heavy, but most of the episode is really very not slow in a bad way, but it takes time with these characters, and we get to see them do things we've never really seen our heroes do in the MCU, which I thought was very cool. I mean, obviously most of these people they've made them very relatable and very human, but this took it a step further to be like, totally. we saw them do things we do on an everyday life. Like it's I thought that was very, very cool. And then the ending, which we'll get into, definitely made the internet mad. And not at the show, but they made us angry. I think so. Not mad at the show, mad at what happens in the show. If that makes sense.
Okay.
It's understandable. So,
full disclosure, and I know I mentioned this to you before. I have never read a comic, so I don't know.
It's fine.
So I don't know like a lot of things, like event wise, like who some people are or like what their purpose is. So I personally have not seen anything about people being mad, but I guess when we talk about it, you'll explain why, and I'll understand it better. But I mean, I'm just here just because dude, Bucky Barnes is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. So the fact that I get to talk about it with somebody for 6 weeks in a row, dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little before too. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is both of one of our favorite MCU movies. It's probably one of my favorite movies in general.
No, it is my favorite MCU movie.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's if you took out the Avengers movies, it would easily be my favorite.
Yeah.
But Endgame holds a special place in my heart. But it beats out Infinity War for me, which is the big deal. Because Infinity War is obviously an insanely massive, incredible movie.
Oh, dude, it was an epic film. Yeah, totally.
Captain America, the trilogy, might be my favorite trilogy ever, even under the Dark Knight trilogy, and I love that. I defend that trilogy till my deathbed. But
who doesn't defend that trilogy?
I don't know. Some people just really hate the last movie. Some people hate the Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
Man, fuck those people. They're wrong as shit. Christopher Nolan is.
I'm with you.
So good.
I'm with you.
I love it. Thank you.
So, like Billy said, he's not familiar with the comics. I am pretty familiar with the comics, so I will be diving into the Easter eggs, little comic references. But knowing the comics doesn't matter in the MCU. My biggest problem, I love learning things. They're like, oh, that's a little nod to the comics, or oh, this might be a little vision into what's to come. But let's be honest here, the MCU never follows the comics. They pay enormous tribute to the comics, and they kind of amalgamate a bunch of runs into one, which I love because I don't want to see the same story twice. Who wants to see the same story twice? Doesn't make any sense. But I do hate the comic nerds that are like, oh, well, you don't know the comics. Well, this is exactly what's going to happen. Then it never happens because they don't follow the comics. But I will be here to aid everyone along in the little Easter eggs and the little nods that they throw in there. Other than some of them, I don't do the number ones unless they're pretty obvious or really cool, because those can get a little too much for me.
Yeah.
People pick up like every number on a screen and like, oh, this is to Captain America 577 when, you know, he shakes Bucky's hand. And I'm just like, that's crazy. Good for you, but it's a little too much for me. So, final warning before we get into this episode 1 of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Spoiler warning, we're about to go into everything that happened in this episode. So, one last time, spoiler warning. So, the episode starts off with the glorious Marvel crawl that, you know, everyone loves. And then we see Sam getting ready, ironing his shirt. And then he puts the shield away in the art bag that Steve gave him to in Endgame. And we hear the line that they had exchanged. How does it feel? It feels like it doesn't belong to me. Well, it does. And obviously we can see that Sam is struggling to think that he is worthy to be the next Captain America. He thinks it should just be Steve. And we'll get into that a little more later. But then we dive right into an insane action sequence. So we find out that Sam is working for the Air Force. Because that was my big question seeing in the trailers. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's working for Sword. Maybe. Who knows? Like, who is he working for? Like, who are him and Bucky working for? So that was answered pretty immediately. And he finds out that one of the lieutenants or sergeants, I can't remember the exact title, not a big military guy, so I don't really know, got captured, and they're trying. Oh, lieutenant. There you go. Caught it. Boom. Lieutenant Torres. Good co-host. Oh, no, he's the guy on the ground. The guy I was talking about, the guy he has to rescue. Yeah, the guy
in the plane. Yeah,
the guy that's captured.
Okay. My bad.
The guy that's It's all good. It's all good. So they send him. They said it has to be discreet, it has to be quiet. They have to rescue. The LAF has taken over this plane, and then we find out that the LAF is led by Backtrack the Leaper, who was in that first fight scene with Captain America and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So cool to have him back. He's actually an MMA fighter, which is cool. I didn't know that until
George
like
St. Pierre.
2 years ago. Yeah, which is cool. That's cool. I didn't know that honestly at all. Makes sense for his like stunt coordinating and shit. Like obviously those people fit right in with this kind of stuff. So
totally.
Pretty much it ends up with Sam rescuing him in this crazy aerial, and we see the craziest Falcon action scenes we've ever seen. This dude is kicking ass. Red Wing is like voice automated now, and like you mentioned, Lieutenant Torres, he's his on the ground man.
Eyes on the
And
ground.
yeah, Joaquin Torres actually in the comics becomes Falcon when Sam becomes Captain America, which I'm not sure if that will actually happen. I'll get more into my thoughts on that, but his origin is very weird because he gets experimented on, and Red Wing in the comics is a literal falcon, like the bird. So they made it like his little guy to make it more modern and make more sense than a actual falcon flying around with him. But they like use the DNA from the Falcon to give Torres his powers. It's really weird. I hope they don't go that route because it's kind of a little too wacky, I think. Yeah. But the guy he does get his powers from in the comics, his name is Carl Malice, who actually has ties to Spider-Woman's origin and this other character, Battlestar, who's kind of intertwined with the Captain America lineage in a way. So that's very cool. So what did you think of this first like action sequence and everything?
I mean, this to me really set the tone for what the rest of the show could possibly be. I thought it was visually stunning. Like Anthony Mackie, just obviously just annihilates it, bro. He's just it was so cool to see like what possibly, well, obviously, I don't think we've seen Falcon's full potential yet when it comes to action sequences, but for this first opening shot, I was just bug-eyed, like, oh my god, like this is so sick. Like it reminds me of like Top Gun. It reminded me of like, as much as shit people talk on the Transformers movies, it kind of reminds me of the first Transformers, like just with all the aerial stunts and all that type of stuff that, you know, just reminded me of like a fighter pilot like type, you know, just dog fight scenes and stuff like that. I loved it, man. It was so cool. And you know, I really couldn't say anything other than it just kicked fucking major ass, dude. It was so sick.
It did.
I couldn't like literally like every time like shit would explode and he would just be flying all over the place. Like, you know, I watch a lot of these shows by myself. I really don't have people to watch them with just because I stay up really late and everybody else I don't really get to watch shit with. But I'm watching it by myself, talking out like oh, that's sick. Oh, that's sick. You know what I mean? So like I'm audibly out loud, like reacting to shots like that. And I just thought it was really, really fucking cool. It also kind of reminds me of like, I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but this entire show, or at least because I've only seen the first trailer. That was it. I never saw anything else after that because I didn't want too much given away. So just from the first trailer alone and from this first episode alone, I kind of get the vibe that this show is going to be like how the Winter Soldier was. And the vibe I got from that film was essentially a Jason Bourne spy thriller.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I feel that the rest of the show is going to feel. And from this opening scene alone, it still gave me that vibe too. Like Jason Bourne, James Bond, like spy thriller shit. You know what I mean? For
sure. I completely agree. It has the Winter Soldier tone without trying to be the Winter Soldier. You know what I mean? It feels like that movie, but it's not trying to imitate that movie. If that makes sense.
Correct. No, I totally get what you mean. Yes.
I loved just how it was shot. Like you'd see like the point of view of Sam, kind of like the up close, like Iron Man shots you would get and everything like that. And the scene where he goes into the enemy helicopter with Batroc and he's like, "What's up, guys?" Like I love Anthony. I think Anthony Mackie is incredible. I think he's so
very
good.
Charismatic as a character. He's very charismatic and he's very, very relatable. I think he's great. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm glad the series has come at like this point of us knowing him in the MCU, because I think that they're both, him and Sebastian Stan as Bucky, they're both so like comfortable in the role now that you can really see that they've like matured as characters, like even them playing it themselves. You know what I mean? It's, you know, we already know these people are, so they can be their characters, which I love.
Yeah, and I'm also glad that they got their own television series. I mean, like obviously, like you know, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. We tend to like obviously Bucky's in all of the movies, but like as like a character study, it's great that they're giving both of them their own show for it. And I think plus also their friendship off camera, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan,
so great.
All they do is rip on each other, and it's so great. And it's gonna be awesome to see how they both develop as characters throughout the rest of this series. So essentially that's kind of why I'm tuned in to watch, because I love their relationship together off camera. So I want to see what their friendship will be like in the show. And I'm just excited for it, bro. It's going to be awesome.
Hell yeah. And then right after that, it's Torres and Sam sitting talking. He's kind of fixing, because you see in the flight part of his pack gets damaged, so he's fixing it. And this very interesting thing that I think might lead into some of my theories. So my theories aren't going to be as crazy as WandaVision, obviously, except that Torres could be Mephisto.
Oh,
just
dude.
Kidding. He's not Mephisto. He's definitely not Mephisto.
That's exactly what I thought.
Definitely be making Mephisto jokes through this whole series.
Oh, I think everybody's going to be doing that for the rest of time now.
Most likely. But he goes to help him with it, and he goes, no. He's like, every time someone in ops messes with this, something goes wrong with it, which plays into my theory, which I'll talk about more later once more of this unfolds. But definitely something to bring up about that. Sam confirms he's been working for the Air Force for 6 months, putting this series in around April 2024, 6 months after the events of Endgame. So it's a few months before Spider-Man Far From Home, but it's 5 months after the events of WandaVision. So I'm interested to see if there was a little clip where Bucky and Sam go back at each other, and he's like, "Oh, the Flag Smashers are part of the big three: aliens, AI, or wizards." And like Bucky's like, "There is no such thing as wizards," and he goes, "Doctor Strange." He's like, "Doctor Strange isn't a wizard; he's a sorcerer." And he goes, "Well," and then Anthony Mackie goes, "Oh, well, I got you. A sorcerer is just a wizard without a hat." It's really funny, but I can't wait to see how that plays out more. And the whole thing of like the big three and what these people are obviously will come later as well. He does bring up the Flag Smashers. He brings up like the augmented reality thing on his phone, saying that they liked how things were in the blip and that they are trying to have a full front with no borders or sort of symbols. It's just like one united group under all. And so Flag Smasher was a villain in the comics, but it was one singular person. They have obviously made this into a whole group. And his MO is the same thing. He wanted the same exact mission as them. His name was Carl Morgenthau, and they have in the credits you can see that Erin Kellyman's character is Carly Morgenthau, so she could kind of be like this. Other than a nod to the comics of that being the Flag Smasher comic name, it's probably it. But it is a very cool attention to detail. And then Torres also brings up, so I need to ask you. There's some theories going around. Is Captain America hidden on a secret space station on the moon, which I think is really funny, but it does peg a very important question. Like, where did Cap go? Because the Russo brothers have confirmed that since Cap went back and changed his past, he made a new future, he made a branch timeline, and then that Cap came back to this reality to give Steve the shield. So it's technically an alternate reality Cap that came to this reality to give Sam the shield. So did he go back to that reality? Did he stay in this one and die? Like, no one knows what happened to him, because if he's just an old man walking around, I doubt anyone will really recognize him. You know, he looks way the fuck older. So it's a good question. Like, where is Cap? None of us really know. You know?
No. I think that, and like, I think it's cool to leave it ambiguous like that. You know what I mean? I think it's like, where is he? Let's just have fun with it.
True, yeah. It's like people have speculated if he'll show up in the series at all as old Cap. I would like it if he didn't. I don't think he really needs to.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I really kind of don't think there's any need for it. I think the way that his story ended in Endgame was kind of the perfect way for it to end. Honestly, like, as much as I would love to see Chris Evans come back, and as much as I would love to see, like, I mean, like, it feels like in this first episode, this was like the last. Well, it's not going to be the last, but this was kind of like a paying homage to like just how amazing Captain America was in the MCU as a whole. Because, you know, it was like with all this shit in the Smithsonian and all that, it's just like, it's kind of like we're just all marveling at who he was and what he represented. So I feel like that's going to be like the most we're probably going to see of it. They'll probably mention it a few times, but I don't think we're going to actually get Chris Evans or Captain America. And honestly, have all the theories you want. I'm not theorizing shit anymore, dude. like after WandaVision, after WandaVision, I'm like, I don't know nothing. Everything I think of just doesn't happen. And it's fine that it doesn't, but at the same time,
of course.
I'm like, I'm just going to watch every episode and I'm just going to have fun, and whatever the fuck happens. Like,
mine aren't even crazy theories. It's just things they're possibly laying the groundwork for that could end up happening in the show, that if they did is cool, and if they didn't, it's fine. Because I made a lot of crazy theories on the after show for WandaVision, and almost all of them were very wrong. Almost everyone's were very wrong.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I still loved the show. So it doesn't take anything away from me. But exactly what you're saying, you're speaking about the Smithsonian, and Sam talks about Cap, says, you know, none of these symbols make a difference or matter unless the people who prop them up. And he thinks that Cap was the one that propped up the symbol. It's a very important one, but it belongs to him, not to me. And he gives up the shield of the Smithsonian. Very cool that Rhodey is in attendance. Dude, there was...
First off,
I'm
so sorry to interrupt you.
You're fine.
I freaked out when I saw Rhodey. I literally was like, "Oh my god, Rhodey!" Like, because like as I mentioned, I never saw any of the other trailers, so I didn't know if like he was even like in a clip of any kind. So it was a really nice little just oh my fucking god, I love Rhodey. I love him so much. Like,
so great.
It was so nice to see him again. You know.
I think Don Cheadle confirmed that he was in it. It became like a big news story. He was never in any of the trailers or anything. Most of the other trailers didn't really give away anything. It was mostly just action shots. So
yeah,
it was super. That's what Marvel does. Marvel gives you nothing. They give you nothing in their trailers anymore.
That is true. You're very right about that.
They're very, very good at that. So I kind of knew he was going to be in it, but I didn't think he would be in the first episode. You know, I was like, oh shit, like, you know, so it was even surprising either way. I was like, oh shit, he's there, but it would make sense he was there. I think he probably thought that he was going to take up the mantle because obviously he brings it up saying, you know, like, why didn't you take up the mantle? The guy at the Smithsonian, the guy, I don't know if he's like the curator. He's obviously some government figurehead of some sort. They didn't really confirm anything like that. At least I don't think. Not that I saw. But he said giving up the shield was the right thing to do, which obviously we'll get into later. But you know, he didn't feel like he lived up to. But think about it. Like who would think they're worthy enough to be the next Captain America? You know what I mean? Like Steve Rogers was. Motherfucker could wield Mjolnir. Like, who the fuck is going to be worthy enough to be Captain America? Like it's crazy. So I get it. You know.
Yeah, like literally Steve Rogers was like one of the most pure souls. Like he was the most optimistic, like nicest guy. Like nobody can, I mean, no offense to Sam. I love Sam, but like that's Steve Rogers we're talking about, man. You know what I mean?
It's a high bar to live up to 100%.
I agree.
And very cool as they're walking through. Like we've seen this exhibit a few times, but they've updated it with the events of Civil War and Infinity War,
so cool,
and Endgame, which was super cool. They had the whole list of the Vanished, which pretty much every name in that Vanished list is someone who works at Marvel, which is really cool. They did the same thing with WandaVision, where they would sneak in, or they would make like a prop. The brand name would be the name of someone who worked at Marvel. They're very good at hiding those things in there. So that was really, really cool. I'm not going to go through those names because no one knows who those names are. Because, I mean, obviously they're appreciated, but no one knows those names. It's not like it's like Kevin Feige on there or something. It's, you know, it's like John Smith who worked on VFX and stuff like that. But still, it's super, super cool that they pay that attention to detail in that kind of set design. And Rhodey kind of goes in the speech saying, you know, like, our allies are now our enemies. Treaties are being broken, which it was another thing I forgot to bring up is that he had to stop that whole air raid thing before they got to Libyan borders. It was like a whole Air Force jurisdiction kind of thing. I think that'll probably play into the story some way. Obviously, with like the Flag Smashers, they don't want any borders. They want everything unified in one front and everything like that. And you know, Rhodey says the world's broken. You know, the blip is like fucked up a lot of shit, you know, like, which is understandable. And it's, I almost think like Marvel the pandemic kind of helped Marvel in a way, or it could have deterred it, because obviously the blip is very, it can be compared to the pandemic, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously they didn't mean it. They've had this planned for years, like 10 years now at this point, or everything like that. So that people were going to go for 5 years and come back. So obviously they could have never guessed something similar would happen in real life. So I guess it could be off-putting to people who like, I don't want something that's this real to me. But it's a great way for us to relate. It's like, yeah, we're going through something like this, you know, like we can relate to the blip in a way. It's crazy how it kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, after he gives him the shield, we go to Bucky, and we get this awesome and terrifying flashback Winter Soldier scene where he just is on a tirade and fucks people up. But then we find out that it's his nightmare. But before we get into what happens after, it's like this scene was nuts. So much crazy action. He's just ruthless, completely ruthless. Even like the first part with him sticking his arm out and grabbing the guy, I was like, holy fuck! I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, like obviously before we knew it was a nightmare scene, like I thought to myself, I'm like, oh man, he's the Winter Soldier again, like fuck. But then I thought about it, I'm like, wait, he has long hair again? What the fuck? Like that was fast. Like his hair grew.
The arm gave it away. The arm gave it away because he saw the Soviet arm. I was like, okay, it's a flashback.
That's me not knowing that. That's me not paying attention to detail. I kind of just was like, I just took it at face value. I was just like, oh shit, like he's the bad Winter Soldier again. Fuck. But at the same time, that scene kicked fucking ass, bro. It was so sick. I fucking loved it.
I do think they could easily trick people that way though, because in Endgame he still had long hair, because obviously he just came back from being snapped away, and he had long hair anyway. So the short haircut is new. Well, he obviously had short hair in Captain America, but it's new to this series. We've only seen it in like the trailer and the promo stuff. They had short hair, so it easily could have been like a first scene before he got a haircut or something. So that's like the one thing where it's like, if you saw his arm, you're like, oh, it's the silver arm. It has the Soviet star on it. Like, okay, it's a flashback.
My shitty attention to detail, that's all.
I like, dude, Marvel stuff I have to like watch. Like, I am constantly the Leonardo DiCaprio meme watching Marvel stuff, just every time, all the time. It's just me. So yeah, we find out it's a nightmare, and then him sleeping on the floor is a very interesting detail, because in Winter Soldier, Sam and Steve had that conversation of like, hey, we need to sleep on the floor because sleeping on a bed, it's too comfortable. It feels like Steve said, it felt like a marshmallow, like I'm sinking to the floor, because they're so used to sleeping on shitty stuff from being
true
soldiers. You know what I mean? So them being at their beds, it's like too comfortable for them, and it doesn't make sense to them. And obviously this show is about two soldiers who are trying to find purpose in life, or find their new path in life. And we get to Bucky talking with this therapist, and then they have this awesome back and forth scene of him making amends with Senator Atwell, which I thought it was so funny but great at the same time. It's perfect MCU comedy. And they have to do is the first rules: don't do anything illegal, which obviously he hijacked the car, which is illegal. Don't hurt anyone, which they show him punching that dude or pistol whipping the guy in the face, pretty much. But he did follow the third rule. He's like, my name is James Bucky Barnes, and I'm no longer the Winter Soldier, and you're part of me trying to make amends. Which and the smile, I love the smile. That was great. The therapist asks if he's having any nightmares, and he ignores it. He doesn't want to like bring it up or talk about it, which sucks. It's like this whole I kind of condensed I took the back and forth off, and just the Bucky stuff, then we'll go into the Flag Smasher stuff, then the Sam stuff, and kind of tie it all back together, because they obviously go back and forth a little bit, but it's easier to summarize it in a condensed all together. It's sad to see all the shit Bucky is going through, you know what I mean? And you see his list. And I want to get into this list. It's a very, very cool list. So it's cool in one way because it's like Cap, because he had the list of like pop culture stuff he needed to catch up on, or anything. But this is obviously very different. It's like him trying to take some of the red off his ledger, him trying to, because it wasn't his fault that he did all this stuff. He was a fucking brainwashed, super soldier. Like, it wasn't his fault. So I feel for him. Like, I obviously can't relate because I'm not some crazy super soldier, 106-year-old assassin, but I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I love Bucky. So it sucks. So this list is very cool. So it has an A Rostov, which could be Andre Rostov from the Red Barbarian. And this does not mean that I think these people are going to show up. I think most of these are just very well-placed Easter eggs. And that's it. It's just him showing he has a list, and they're probably just, almost all of them are probably just Easter eggs. It has P.W. Hauser, which is probably Paul Walter Hauser from Cobra Kai fame, Stingray. But he was also in I, Tonya with Sebastian Stan. They're actually really good friends in real life. So I think it's just a nod to Paul Walter Hauser, which is awesome because he's hilarious. He's a super funny guy. Then it has H. Hendrickson, which could be Hal Hendrickson, who was a soldier who got the Venom symbiote before Flash Thompson in the comics. They have an H. Zemo, which is obviously one that actually matters because it is probably Helmet Zemo, who is going to be showing up in this series. I would guess next episode, because we did not see him this episode. I would imagine we would.
He's like, he was in the. He's like confirmed to like. I'm pretty sure I saw him in the trailer.
Oh yeah, he's in the show, 100%. Yeah, we just didn't see him this episode. And the whole list is also kind of like a callback to to Bucky and Tony's fight at the end of Civil War, because he obviously that's when he finds out that he killed his parents, and he goes, "Do you remember them?" And Bucky says, "I remember all of them." Like obviously he does. He has a list of. And I was like, deep man,
Damn,
like
bro.
So Bucky gets lunch with Yuri Nakajima, who we find out is the father of the dude he killed in that flashback we saw.
Dude,
this whole thing.
I gotta say that took me by complete surprise. I did not see that coming at all. It was like I watched this show by myself, and I remember saying out loud to myself, I went, "Oh my god, Bucky!" Or like I was just like, I cannot. Like that was it. Honestly, made me kind of sad, man. Like I was like, this
dude, it broke my heart straight up.
It honestly, that's exactly like how I felt. It literally broke my heart. It was. Yeah, it was pretty shattering, man.
It was so sad. I do love how they like relate to each other, because Bucky is actually an old man. You know, he grew up in the 40s, you know, like the 30s and 40s. Like he's old. Like, he's 106 years old. So it's like them like going over the obituary. Like it's funny how they can like easily relate to each other, even though they do not look like they're the same age at all. And obviously, even Yuri's probably way younger than he is. There's no way he's 100 years old. You know, you know, he's probably like 70 or something, maybe 80, but you know, probably like 60, 70 or something. So I love how they relate to each other. And let me tell you, man, Yuri, dope ass wingman, gets Bucky a date. Great fucking wingman, dude.
A great wingman. And you know, I thought that's one thing about like this episode that you were talking about. We got to see these characters do things we never got to see them do. It's like we got to see Bucky go on a date. Like what the fuck? Like how it's so random, but at the same time it's such a humanizing aspect to his character, because it's like, what would he be like on a date? Like, I love it. You know, how old are you? 106. It's just like,
yeah.
Like that doesn't like throw you off at all. Like, you know, cute Asian girl.
What's with the gloves? I have bad circulation.
Like, so good. Like, and Matt, oh my god, just like that's such a good. Like, we just don't get to see that with Bucky. You know, like we kind of saw that with Steve, but like.
Sort of.
You know, obviously with Peggy and like her niece, it was kind of just like we didn't even get to see that with Bucky, and to see like him like be in a normal situation in an everyday life situation that we've all been on a first date with some person, and it's like, how would Bucky Barnes be on a first date with somebody? And we literally get and dude, like when he just straight up bailed, I was like, what a dick. What is he doing? Where is he going? And then obviously that's where we get the revelation of the kid being someone that he killed, being Yuri's son. I was like, that's where I was like, oh fuck, dude. Like, I hope that gets brought back around, be like, hey, sorry I had to bail on the date. I had to take care of that. Like, you know what I mean?
His name was also on the list, and obviously he wanted to tell him at that moment. That's what made him leave. He wanted to tell him, but he can't tell him. And there was another fact I forgot to bring up from the therapy session. You know, he talked about how he was only really at peace when he was in Wakanda. But other than that, he's been going from fight to fight for 90 years.
Yep.
Like, man. And you know, then to go see him, you know, talk with Yuri, and then go on this like little date playing Battleship and everything like that. And they even mentioned how he can drink so much. That's you know, like obviously Steve couldn't get drunk because the way his body works as a super soldier serum, he just like can't get drunk. It's like impossible. It just goes. I mean, I don't drink, so I can't.
I don't anymore, at least.
But yeah, it was just like I said, it was really cool. Bucky doing these things, but you know, he's trying to find like what to do. He doesn't know what to do. You know, he's trying to make amends, but he doesn't have like a purpose. The one person he had that he could lean on, and it was still a tie to the time period he grew up in, is gone now.
Yep.
You know, it's like the same thing how Sam, his mentor, is now gone. Like he almost gave him like a second lease in life in a way. Like obviously he was doing the help group for the veterans, in
Right.
Winter Soldier, but he brought him into the fold of being an Avenger and everything like that. Like he changed Sam's life, and obviously Sam saved Cap's life in Winter Soldier. So it was a trade off for both of them. But like Sam's life is not the same it was when he was just getting passed a million times in the beginning of Winter Soldier. It's totally different now.
Yeah.
And now Steve's gone. And it's funny though, because every time they do show like the Shield or Cap, he's always on his left.
Always on the left. Yeah, of course.
Always on the left.
On your left.
And then we're in Switzerland now, and we see Torres. He's been tracking one of the augment things for the Flag Smashers, like obviously for a meetup. And then we find out it's kind of just like a flash mob thing to distract from them robbing a Swiss bank. Obviously, the Swiss banks are like notorious for, being for criminal organizations, so they can launder money and blah, 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 blah. So they could be like doing a job for someone or just stealing from someone. Who knows? I'm sure we'll find out later to see how this kind of all ties together.
Yeah.
But he's obviously trying to get more intel on the Flag Smashers, and obviously sees them, and he sees these motherfuckers are very fucking strong.
Yeah.
Real strong.
Totally. I have a question.
Yes.
Was that set piece the same set from Infinity War where Wanda and Vision were at? Because it seemed like the building that was the bank, and then that little corner was that cafe where Wanda and Vision looked and saw the shit on the screen from New York. It kind of looked like that. I'm probably. I mean, it just looked like it. It's probably not the exact same. It just kind of looked like it. But anyways, back to what
it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have filmed it at the same set and hoped no one noticed.
Yeah,
because that happens all the time.
It does.
It's funny because like tracking back to WandaVision, most like the last conflict and most of the intro videos that they did, like the sitcom intro videos where they were in like the town square, it's filmed at the Universal Studios in LA. And I took a tour of it. And if I didn't take a tour of it, I would have noticed. But since you're actually there yourself, you're like, oh, it's like Friends have been filmed there. Like so many things we all know and love have been filmed there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I've stood there. Like I've been there. Where fucking Wanda and Agatha fight each other. It's pretty cool. But some of those things you kind of tend to notice now. People pay very attention to detailed stuff, so it's kind of hard to sneak those things in nowadays. So it definitely could be. For some reason, I thought it was another European country, but it definitely could be Switzerland because I don't remember what country they were in at that point.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But the set looked the same is all. Fuck, I don't care if it's the same country. it just looked like the same area in that one shot, at least. Yeah.
We see Torres get knocked out, and now I'm going to switch to the Sam part of this episode. So Sam goes to Louisiana, where his family home and business is. I love how his nephew, or he comes in, his nephews are like Sam, and then his sister calls him Uncle Sam and salutes. I thought that was really funny because he is actually an Uncle Sam. And it's kind of funny tying into this whole government, which I think is going to be kind of a government conspiracy kind of thing that this is going to be playing out to be. So that was a really, really funny nod. And obviously he's talking to his sister about selling the boat. He doesn't want to sell the boat, but she's like, I've been here dealing with this shit. You haven't. For one, being an Avenger, then being on the run, then being literally a pile of dust for 5 years, which sucks. But, he wants to help, though. This is our family's business. Like, the boat is seriously named after their parents. Like, he doesn't... And it's like... It's another whole thing about the show is that he's kind of clinging on to the past, trying to help in the present, but he's kind of letting the past, like, weigh him down in a way. Like, he wouldn't let the legacy of Cap continue with him because he didn't think it was worth it, and he's still trying to help his sister, even though he hasn't really been there to deal with it. But he says, "Hey, I'll make a call in the bank, make an appointment. We'll get a loan. We'll figure this out together." And she's like, "Yeah, here to the rescue." And he's like, "Always." It was a really cool dynamic. And again, this is like, it's something we didn't know, like that these superheroes had like financial issues. Like it's wild. And obviously,
it's literally something that they brought up. It's like, how did you guys get paid? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they literally brought it up in that meeting. It's like, how did, besides Tony Stark, how did any of these guys make money? How do they make a living? How do they do anything? And it's just like, you know, I don't exactly remember what Sam said, but pretty much is, you know, they had, you know, the government paid them, and it's just like, okay, that's cool, but
yeah, like
how
exactly.
much? How much? You know what I'm saying?
They went to the bank and they were saying how they have no income for the last 5 years, which of course he couldn't have income for the last 5 years. He was not on Earth.
Dead. He was literally dead.
Dead. And then, you know, he brings out, that he kind of plays it and he's like, you look familiar. And he's like, do I look familiar? And he's like, oh yeah, you're Falcon, you're Avenger. Cool. Let me get a selfie. Like and we saw a similar moment, in the scene with him and Torres in the beginning of the episode, but it was a really cool moment saying like, hey, you brought back my family, you know, which is really cool. Because it still seems like the public still has admiration for the Avengers. I mean, there's not many Avengers really left on Earth, but they still have, you know, love for these people because they're still heroes to them. You know, they saved the world. You know, but then they say, you know, like, hey, the blip got everything tighter, and he brought up, like, exactly what you said, like, you know, how did you get paid to Tony Stark? And my kind of thought into that is, when he was an Avenger, he lived on the Avengers compound. It's like not like they needed money for anything.
Right.
He just lived, you know, they probably, you know, all the food was stocked by Tony and everything. They probably didn't have to worry about shit, you know. They're just living whatever. So they probably didn't need money for anything. They probably got everything provided for them. Which is the only thing I can think of in some logical reasoning.
I mean, it does,
but it is. But it's interesting to know. It's like, yeah, he's like, you know, we pretty much, you know, he's like, situations like this, you know, so we lived on goodwill. And then he kind of mentioned that he had government contracts with the Air Force now, because obviously he's working for the Air Force. And they denied a loan, which is crazy. And my friend sent me this tweet, which I kind of want to bring up, because this is going to be a big theme of this whole show, is that he goes, it was something like, oh, Bucky was a crazy assassin, but he got pardoned and gets free, you know, mental therapy and everything like that. And Sam can't even get a bank loan. I was like, dude, this is about race. I was like, that's what this is about. You know, I was like, this is going to be a big theme throughout the whole show. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, well, the writer in interviews has talked about it. The writer is a black man. It's really cool to see, because the writer, I think he's the showrunner as well. But then the director is this kind of like older white woman. And seeing her, you would not think that she would be a visionary for this kind of show, especially like the opening scene being shot, and then kind of like how the therapy scene was shot, when it was like very like up close and like anxiety driven in a way. It's amazing like how this like kind of like unlikely dynamic you would think would be together is creating this kind of like masterful show and a study of like mental health and race and self-worth and where you belong in the world and everything like that. It's very, very cool to see. And that ties into Torres calling Sam and saying like, hey, I sent you my footage. Like, these guys are strong. And then a very interesting line where he's like, do you think they're, and then Sam stops him. I don't know what he was going to say. And I'm sure people will be like, oh, he was going to say mutants. He wasn't going to say mutants. I'm going to put the mutant gauntlet down right now, because I don't think mutants are going to happen for a long time. And it's for a good reason, because X-Men can carry the MCU for like over a decade. There's so much lore with X-Men, and they can do it Avenger style, do a Storm movie, do a Professor X movie, do whatever. Like, they can build it super slow and then lead to an X-Men movie, which I think they're going to do. So I don't think we're going to get mutants for a long time, a while. We might get some clues here and there, which I think we got a little bit of some clues in WandaVision, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, but like, it's coming. It's coming. Yeah, it's like, people are like, I know people want mutants. Obviously, X-Men are super beloved. They haven't really been done right in movie form, to be honest. They've been mutant films, not really X-Men films. And there's some good mutant films, but some of them also aren't good. So, or they're just not as good as other Marvel movies, and that's just a fact. But they're in the same world now. They will be introduced eventually, but I don't think this is it. I think it might have been like him saying super soldier or something, maybe, because obviously in Civil War we found out there was more, and it kind of gets me into this kind of theory of this could wind up introducing the Weapon Plus program, which obviously leads to Wolverine, but
the Weapon Plus program is tied to Hulk, is tied to Abomination in the comics, is tied to Captain America. So they could easily say that this, is a government-run program with the super soldier serum, and obviously they saw Bucky steal the super soldier serum to make those ones that Zemo ended up killing and everything like that. But and Ross has dealt with making his own super soldier serum, like that's why Abomination happened and everything like that. So it could be leading to more of, because that's why I think these shows are really starting to set up, is that the government doesn't want the Avengers. And the Avengers are broken now. Obviously, there really isn't an Avengers team. It's kind of just superheroes doing their own thing. Yeah, and a lot of them are in fucking space. So, so I think this is like my other theory, and it's not like a crazy theory like Mephisto is behind all of this or anything, but that this show is going to introduce the Thunderbolts, which they're basically the government-run Avengers, and most of them are bad guys. Zemo runs it in the comics. Zemo's in the show. He could be involved. Batroc the Leaper is involved. I don't know if U.S. Agent was in it, but his kind of run in the comics is kind of confusing in a way. And obviously, they're not going to do it the same anyway. But I think those two are definitely like in play of something that could come up in this show. It's definitely possible, but before we get to like the last reveal, and then I have some stuff to bring up from the credits graphics, which are pretty interesting. But yeah, what did you think about that whole last interaction with Torres and Sam, of him kind of finding out like who the fuck these motherfuckers are? Like obviously they're enhanced individuals, as the MCU likes to call them so far.
Yeah. Well, first off, there was one thing that I before this show premiered, I read an article about how this show is going to be, the demographic of the show is aimed for an older audience. So one of the things that I hoped to have seen was blood. And there was a scene where one of the Flag Smashers punches the shit out of Torres, and you actually see blood splat out of his face. So I really like that. But the last interaction between Torres and Sam, as I said, I'm not too familiar with a lot of these stories, so I didn't exactly know what to make of it, if I'm going to be honest with you. Fair. Obviously what I felt was just intrigue, because I didn't know who these Flag Smashers were. And obviously after you explaining it being just one individual person, whereas now it's essentially like a cult or like a group of some kind. So now it just leaves me with just a lot more intrigue. It's just like, okay, well, what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I just that's pretty much it. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really know how else to explain it, other than just like I'm just intrigued and I'm just looking forward to just seeing what happens. But it's obviously this show, obviously it kicks fucking ass already, dude, after just the one episode. And I also want to point out, I like how we're going to be getting less episodes, but I do like how the episodes are a little bit longer. I like how this episode was like 47 minutes long, so I'm cool with that. But honestly,
they're supposed to end up being the same like amount of content, like runtime, like all the shows. They'll just be broken down differently. I think the Loki show is the same as this one. It's like 6 episodes, but She-Hulk's supposed to be like 10 half-hour episodes. Okay. It's definitely going to vary from series to series, but yeah, it's definitely, this feels like a miniseries. Like when you break down, it is, you know what I mean? Like we don't know if we're going to get a season 2 of it, or what movies it's going to lead to, or what other series it's going to lead into. Obviously, it's very hard to tell that right now. But yeah, those are just kind of like my guesses. I don't know if they're going to come true, and I still really don't know the main motivation of the Flag Smashers, or like we haven't seen Zemo. Like I don't know the main motivation behind what Zemo is doing, or even what Zemo is really doing. Like we haven't gotten any indication of that at all. And the episode ends and Bucky and Sam haven't even met up. And I think this last scene is kind of what causes them to meet up. And I forgot to mention, the therapist mentioned that, she took his phone and said he was ignoring Sam's text. Like obviously Sam has been trying to reach out to Bucky and kind of be a friend to him. And he's kind of just ignored him. But the last scene ends. He was kind of talking with Torres, and his sister comes in the room and said, did you see this? And it's a press conference. It's the same guy from the Smithsonian. And he kind of steals Sam's speech from the Smithsonian, and they introduce the new Captain America, which is Wyatt Russell playing John Walker, which John Walker in the comics, he actually was someone called the Super Patriot who got turned into Captain America. And then he becomes U.S. agent. U.S. agent was part of the West Coast Avengers and stuff like that. But he's kind of just like a dick Captain America, pretty much. Yeah. He doesn't have the same heart. He'll do whatever it means necessary. And who knows if he'll even be called U.S. agent? He might be, because it seems like, it's like we saw in like the end credits, like a Cap is back, and he called him Captain America. They're definitely trying to say, like, this is the new Captain America. Maybe he comes U.S. agent if Sam decides to take up the shield and becomes the new Captain America by the end of this. Like, obviously, that's a big question of this show. But the thing, like you said, I'm very intrigued by the show because I don't know how all of these stories are going to converge, which that makes me super excited. It was the same thing with like WandaVision. Like, it's like obviously there's going to be this weird, crazy mystery, but like I didn't know where things were going. Like every episode has surprised me with something new. So like I'm very excited to see how these stories kind of intertwine with each other. But it's like obviously the government did not want Sam to be Captain America. The same guy said you're doing the right thing, and Sam thought he was doing the right thing, like putting it in a museum, letting Cap's legacy be Steve's legacy as Captain America.
Right.
But no, they're like, no, we don't want a black guy as Captain America. And it goes to what I said about Torres in the beginning, like him saying like, oh, every time I bring, it's like they wanted him. Like I'm guessing the Air Force probably, reached out to him, and Thaddeus Ross, he's the one who forms the Thunderbolts in the comics. And, he's been the guy, he brought up the Sokovia Accords. Like he's been very against a lot of the Avengers.
Yep.
So, and Thaddeus Ross is mentioned in the end credit scenes and some of the graphics, which I'll get to, but it definitely seems like I said, like a very big tone of this series is going to be about race. And like we saw it in the bank with the loans, and now we see it like they want some normal white guy to be Captain America. So it's like, he kind of looks like Captain America. So he's your new Captain America. And another big note is that he had a gun in his holster, which obviously Cap in the first Captain America had a gun, but he was fighting a war. So it's a little bit different. But in modern times, he never carried a gun on him. Ever.
No. A friend of mine, I was talking about John Walker with. I asked him like, what's the deal with that guy? Because again, I didn't know about it, and he pretty much told me think of him as a right wing Captain America. So that kind of plays into why he said he has a gun in his holster, because the right wingers, they love their guns. So maybe we'll see what happens with that, but. That's another person was talking about it. He's like, he looks like the guy from Up, the old man. From Up, like,
I saw the meme and I was like, I can't unsee that now.
I can't unsee it either.
But yeah, the reason I said people were mad is because it's like, that's not his shield. You know what I mean? Like they were mad at like this motherfucker's trying to be Captain America now after like, because he was kind of shown in the trailer. They have like they have like the pep rally where he like walks out, but they never showed his face. They were like very good at not showing his face. Obviously it was known that Wyatt Russell was playing this character, and people, obviously were like, oh, the government is trying to make him the new Captain America. People could easily put that together, but the reveal of how they did it was very like, it was like a punch in the face. You know what I mean? Like, the episode starts with Sam, trying to pay tribute to Cap and be like, yes, it belongs in the museum, and with all of his other stuff to be the legacy of Steve Rogers. And they're like, nope, we got a new guy. Kind of looks like him.
There was also something that I kind of noticed, like kind of along the lines of where you were like, oh, this show's going to be about race and stuff too, about how they didn't want a black guy to be Captain America. There was an interaction, I think it was between Sam and Torres, about essentially conspiracy theories, like about how like, oh, Captain America's on the moon. And it's like, yeah, people believe anything that's crazy or like whatever, that interaction was pretty much like a dig at like all the conspiracies that are going around. And like, I'm pretty sure the show was written before now all the conspiracies, all the crazy conspiracies people believe in, but it's so like almost topical. Yeah, it's very topical. I was about to say on the nose, but that's not what I meant. But it's very relevant. I think that's the word I was looking for. It's like it's very relevant. It's very to now's time, and it's almost like they kind of knew this stuff was gonna happen, so they're just like, we're just gonna write this in real quick. But like, I feel like a lot of the things that we're seeing in today's world right now is gonna be kind of the forefront, not necessarily the forefront, but it's definitely going to be an underlying message within the rest of the series for sure. Like I can totally see that. Like I didn't really think it, like obviously when I saw the scene of, you know, Sam getting denied the loan, that was something that played in my mind, but I was the whole race issue, but I'm like, I don't think they're going to make that a point, or they're not going to make that as like a theme to the show. But then after what you just told me about like how, we want some white guy to be Captain America, I'm kind of like second guessing that, being like, okay, maybe that is what they're going to do. And, you know, obviously that's something that the world is struggling with right now, with like the equality between the two races. And so, you know, I mean, like I said, we'll see what happens. We don't know. We'll see.
Of course.
I think by the end of this season, I think we'll see Sam take up the mantle, and
I hope so. Honestly,
I'm
very. Hope so. I don't know. You know, I mean, like
it could be possible that maybe Bucky will, because I know that in the comics, Bucky is also Captain America. Mm-hmm. You know, but I think we're all really pulling for Sam to be the next one. You know, I think everybody in the group, and I think the entire Marvel fan base is really rallying around Sam Wilson being the next one. I think so, because I think, like, you know, at the end game, Sam was the one that talked to Steve, not Bucky. Bucky was the one to be like, you know, he gave him the head nod. So it's like, I think the mantle will be passed. If it's not by the end of this season, if we do get more, I think eventually Sam is going to take up the mantle, because, like, I think that's what the fans want, and I think Marvel really listens to the fans and they give them what they want. So I think I think we'll see it. I think we'll see it.
Yeah, I did too. So the end credits have a lot of little nuggets of like Easter eggs and stuff that probably have to do with the show. I would imagine.
Oh, totally. I mean, this is Marvel we're talking about. This is all planned out. Like, there's no way they didn't put these little nuggets in the credits without it having some type of effect on the show later on.
Unless it's an aerospace engineer, and we won't bring that up ever again. Yeah, I watched some interviews about that one. Definitely was not meant to get blown up like that, but it was.
Yeah.
They might pay it off later, though. That's a different show.
Well, yeah, I know.
They had like a line that says a shadowy group pulls off a huge weapon heist. They have a bunch of documents about the Sokovia Accords.
Mm-hmm.
They have one line where it's human rights violation in Madripoor, which is going to be a big set piece for the show. Madripoor has a lot of ties to especially Wolverine in the comics. Again, I don't think Wolverine is going to be involved, but it is another Marvel-based location that they're bringing to live action, kind of like Wakanda.
Can you fucking imagine it if... And this is so just not going to happen, but can you imagine if fucking Wolverine or some type of mutant is revealed in this damn show? If what you're saying, like, I believe what you're saying is true, but can you fucking imagine it?
I know, it'd be insane.
Episode, we see a motherfucking shink shink, just like, oh man, that would
crazy.
That would just crazy.
It's also a big set piece for the Hand, who have a lot to do with Daredevil, obviously, which they could come into play, but probably not. I think the Hand would be more like Shang-Chi kind of thing. But this show could have some ties to Shang-Chi in a way, because they're going to be in the general vicinity of like region of where that might come up. You know, there might be like a little nod or something that might set up a piece of Shang-Chi, maybe. Because that's like a big thing with Shang-Chi is like, we don't even know when that takes place. It could have taken place like during the blip, or we have no idea. We know nothing really about that.
Oh, true. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
Other than the Mandarin is going to be in it, has to do the 10 rings, which obviously tie back to Iron Man and everything like that. So maybe that's a big maybe. But it's cool that Magic Force being existed into the MCU proper. It's like I said, another fictional Marvel place getting brought into live action, like Wakanda and stuff like that. Very cool. It said Masked Man plagues downtown Prague into chaos. Could be Zemo. There's also like almost like a painting of Zemo's comic accurate mask, which he's obviously shown in the trailers wearing. In a part of this too, there's a ton of references to December 16, 1991, which is the date that Bucky murdered the Starks. There's like
I have a
even
question about that actually.
Yes.
Is that accurate to the comics? Bucky killing the Stark?
I don't think so, but I don't know. A lot of the Bucky stuff is a lot of it's older, but they've been doing newer stuff. Like he's in this group called the Invaders, and they actually started a new Falcon and the Winter Soldier comic that has nothing to do with the show, but it's the same characters teaming up together because they really haven't had much interaction with each other in the comics. Not like this. So it's kind of something completely new in a way. But obviously they're both very tied to Captain America in the comics and the MCU, both respectively. But I don't think so. I think that's very an MCU thing, not a comic thing. I could be wrong. Correct. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. They have the activation words for him when he was the Winter Soldier. They have them like written down.
So cool. I loved seeing that. That was so cool.
Very,
I had to pause and be like,
cool.
wait, are those the ones? Yeah. Great car and Homecoming, and I guess so sick.
Yep. They had a redacted memo that was to Thaddeus Ross that was like a change in the Enhanced Humans Act, which could lead to my Super Soldier Weapon Plus program kind of thing.
Do you think we'll see Ross in the show?
It's very possible. If they do if this could be the origin of the Thunderbolts or the start of it, I definitely think he'll show up for sure. Because last we knew, he was Secretary of State, so he obviously probably has something to do with this new Captain America and shit like that. I would imagine. There's also they have a shot of these blue vials, which look very similar to the Super Soldier serum we've seen in the MCU. They have another thing where it says Power Broker is watching, which Power Broker is the group who gives John Walker his power in the comics, which they could end up showing up in this series. Then it could be just like a group who are like supplying the Super Soldier serum to the government, or maybe they have something to do with the Flag Smashers. Who really knows? And then they have this picture of this black man, and it's a research case file, which most people are thinking it is of Isaiah Bradley, who ended up he was called Black Captain America, but in this comic series, the Red, White, and the Black, the government experimented on 300 black soldiers with Super Soldier serum. Most of them ended up very bad, but Isaiah Bradley ended up working, and he became Captain America. But it's like another thing with government and race and everything like that. Like obviously it's like very, very similar to like the Vietnam War, of them sending a bunch of like mostly black battalions to fight in the Vietnam War and shit like that. Like we've seen in movies like To Five Bloods and everything like that. And his grandson is Elijah Bradley, who ends up becoming Patriot, who's a member of the Young Avengers, which is very prominent that they are setting up the Young Avengers. Obviously, we got Billy and Tommy in WandaVision. Kate Bishop is going to be in the Hawkeye series. Stature is going to be in the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Miss Marvel showing up, which she's not in the Young Avengers, but I think they're probably going to tie her into the Young Avengers. I would imagine I would imagine they're going to. She's very young in the show. So I would guess they're all going to eventually team up to be the Young Avengers. I think they might actually team up in the Ant-Man movie. I could be totally fucking wrong, but with Kang being involved, and Kang, his past self is actually Nathaniel Richards, who is a descendant from the future of Reed Richards, who is Iron Lad, who eventually becomes Kang. It's this crazy fucking shit. I don't even know if they're going to do it the same way in the comics or in the MCU, but I kind of hope they do because it's really fucking cool. Yeah. So obviously the Young Avengers are coming, so it'd be very cool if he shows up in the series too. Oh, American Chavez is also going to be in Doctor Strange 2, who's also a Young Avenger. So the Young Avengers are imminent. It's happening.
Yeah.
So those are most of the ones I caught in the ends and credit graphics and stuff. There's a lot in there. So it's very, very cool. The show's very awesome. Obviously, we've been loving it for an hour now, and I am very excited to see where it's going. I love that we're getting more time with these characters. That's what I love about like all of the Disney Plus series have been either like they're either going to be an introduction to a new character where we get to spend more time with them, or it's taking these kind of like more background secondary characters and giving us more time with them. Like obviously they did with WandaVision.
That's what I was going to say.
They're doing it with, Falcon Winter Soldier. They're doing it with Hawkeye. It's awesome. Just, it's cool to see these people who haven't got their own movies get a long form movie in a series.
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say. It was like, I don't know if I had mentioned this to you at all, like in like just the DMs or anything, but going back to WandaVision, like I'm really glad they gave her a show because you can do a lot of fleshing out with the show. And obviously, it would have been cool, obviously, if she got her own movie, but like the fact that we got like essentially like a 5-6 hour long movie of, with what we got with WandaVision, I really thought that was honestly kind of better. And I think that, we already have enough backstory with Bucky. But I don't really know that much about Sam, obviously he's been a prominent character in the Captain America movies, or well, at least Winter Soldier and Civil War. And then, in some of the Avengers movies, he was, pretty prominent, but I don't really know much about him. And when in this first episode, you got to know more about him. He has a family business. He's, taking care of his family back in Louisiana. They have like a boat and a fishing company and like all this type of stuff. And like all that stuff, I had no idea. And it's great to finally get to know him a little bit more. And, maybe, there could be a lot more that I didn't know about him that I'll get to find out. And I think that having something like this really is the way to go. And I agree. I'm all here for it, man.
Same here. I am into this. I mean, I'm pretty much in the bag with anything Marvel, but if you give me long form stories with these characters, I'm even more in.
Because that's what everybody really wants, man. Everybody just wants to know where these people come from. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to be able to relate to somebody. Everybody wants to watch these films and these shows and just be like, I just want to find a connection. And everybody is going to be like, oh, I relate to, like, in my personal opinion, I relate to Peter Parker the most. He's this dorky kid. He got picked on in high school a lot, whatever. But, and then people might be like, oh, I relate to Tony in this way because of XYZ reasons, or I relate to Bucky because of XYZ reasons. And it's like, I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to Sam and people relate to, whoever. And I think that with these long form shows, you really get to really dive in deep and just peel back all the layers. It's just gonna be so cool, man. I can't wait.
Yes,
can't wait to see more.
I love it. So before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to add about the episode? Anything like that?
I think, yeah. I mean, I just want more action. Give me all the action. I'm so excited, man. It's gonna be so much fun, man. It's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait.
Yes. I'm stoked to do this with you. It's going to be great to do this every week.
Thank you for, I just got to say, thank you for asking me to do this. Cause seriously, man, I loved, I usually just listen to podcasts for the most part and just, hearing you and, I'm sorry, Tyler.
Yes.
With WandaVision, I'm like, that just seems so much fun. Like, because I do I have my own podcast that I talk to my friends about nerd stuff for. And I have, excuse me, I normally just have normal conversations with my coworkers and friends here at the house, just about all the shit that we watch. And I'm just like, I love talking about stuff like this. And, hearing you and Tyler talk every week about, WandaVision, I'm just like, man, I would love to talk to Sean about anything nerd wise. And then you were like, hey, do you want to talk about the Falcon and Winter Soldier? And I'm like, yes, I do. like oh my god, it's just so cool. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this, man. It's honestly,
of course,
an honor to do this. Seriously, like as silly as that might sound, it really is really cool. So just thank you, man. Thank you. I'm probably gonna say that every single week, but thank you.
No, man, of course. I'm super glad to have you on it. Like, obviously, I scoped your YouTube channel and saw that you had a podcast and stuff like that. I was like, this guy's perfect for this. So I was like, he fits right in. It's easy, you know. So that's why I was like, I'll ask him. And obviously, I saw you like react and you know, interact with people in the group. So I was like, oh, it's a perfect guy to ask. You know,
like,
boom, and here we are.
And like I said, dude, like before we started, like the fact that you've integrated the metal and the hardcore scene in with nerd culture stuff, like I never like those groups don't really exist on Facebook. So the fact that you were able to do this, and when you told me you started this at the beginning of quarantine, I'm like, dude, I thought this has been around for way longer. Honestly,
no.
Like I thought this was around for many, like at least a couple of years. But like the fact that this is a thing, it warms my heart because a lot of kids in the hardcore scene and the metalcore scene are fucking nerds. We're just weird, dorky. We love shit. We love Star Wars. We love Marvel. We love DC. We love whatever it is. And the fact now that there is a community for something like this, it's great, man. And I'm happy to be here. Happy to be a part of it. So thank you again. Thank you again.
No, man. Thank you. Seriously. And yes, if you are listening to this and you want to be a part, there's a secret Facebook group. You can just request it, or, you know, anyone who's in it, invite your friends who are also in nerd stuff to be in it. I maxed out, I think, all the friends that at least I know are into nerd stuff. I already invited them in. They're already in there. So I have no more other people to add to other people find it. And, you know, let us know what you're thinking of Winter Soldier. Comment down below. Hit us up on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. It's all just at Metalcore Nerds. And yeah, until next week. See you later.
Yeah.